Thanks very much for tuning in to Unmissable. I'm Nabila Jamal, and we're very sad today after the plane crash that killed 241 people. We're looking at stories unraveling. This entire hour, I'm going to take you through all the versions, all the angles, all the updates on the Air India plane crash in Ahmedabad. Families now still scrambling for their loved ones' mortal remains. Their DNA tests have been done, but no one knows whose mortal remains belongs to which family. That's the confusion at this point. We're going to take you through all the updates as we know, as always, the headlines. Ahmedabad crash triggers DGCA action now. All Air India Boeing flights, 787s, to undergo safety checks. In the next few weeks, audits will be carried out and reports have to be given to the DGCA as per orders. Murder twist. Sonam lover must face narco test, says the victim's family. In fact, they wanted a CBI probe. Now they've insisted that a narcotics test must be done to see what more could be hidden. The Supreme Court dismisses a plea to revoke Z Plus cover for the Ambanis, warns petitioner against filing frivolous cases again. Karnataka High Court halts Ola, Uber, Rapido bike taxis. No interim relief granted to operators in a major setback for them. Karnataka launches special action force to restore communal harmony in 3 districts, one of its kind in the country. A communal harmony message that they want to send out through this special action force that will crack down specifically on all communally related violence. CBI arrests senior professor of Northeastern Hill University for allegedly taking bribe. The IMD has issued an orange alert in Goa until June 16th. Heavy rainfall, gusty winds lash coastal areas. In fact, most parts of southern India also now has a rain alert. In fact, here you have, apologies for that image there. Let me take you through. Our first story right here on the plane crash. The crash that's broken India's heart. A routine flight turned into a fiery grave just seconds after takeoff. Air India's London-bound flight AI-171 crashed only 1.5 kilometers from the runway in Ahmedabad that claimed 241 lives. Only one person survived. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, visited the wreckage site, calling it heartbreaking beyond words. Now, investigators from India, the United Kingdom and the United States are racing to find out what really went wrong. In fact, these were the visuals that surfaced early on today with the Prime Minister inspecting himself the entire site where the plane crashed, the BJMC college, medical students who died in that very spot. Their families are currently aggrieved. They are also being condoled by the government itself, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself at the spot taking cognizance of the situation. The plane was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, brand new, top of the line. It was flown by 2 seasoned pilots, Captain Sumit Sabarwal and co-pilot Clive Kundar. With over 9,000 hours of flying experience between 2 of them, they were said to be expert pilots. But less than a minute after takeoff, something went terribly wrong. The plane was carrying nearly 100 tons of fuel, a full load of the long haul to London. Seconds into that flight, the cockpit there sent out a mayday signal and then complete silence. No further radio response. The plane rose to just 625 feet and then quickly dropped. Those are the images that came in soon after the crash. Footage shows it flying very low over homes before vanishing behind trees and exploding in a distance. In fact, CCTV has confirmed that the plane was airborne for literally 30 seconds before it crashed. So what really happened? Experts are now looking at 4 possibilities. One could be loss of lift. The plane took off, it climbed, but then lost air support. Two, flaps were not deployed. Suspicion is that flaps were not deployed the way it should have. In fact, flaps helped the plane lift off. If they weren't set, then there's a huge problem. Possibly a human error could be suspected here. Landing gear stuck. Now the gear didn't retract, which may have forced the flaps too early to come out, leading to a stall. Dual engine failure, which is rare but possible. Ahmedabad's airport also at the same time is also notorious for birds. So a bird strike can also cause engine failure or engines to shut down. So these are the possible angles that experts are currently looking into. Investigators particularly are observing. There's talk of whether the RAT, R-A-T, a system which is a backup air turbine, where if two engines fail, this RAT system basically kicks in to help the flight stay afloat. Was that triggered in time? Now, that's something that the investigation will reveal. One pilot told news agencies there that engine failure can also happen if at all fuel gets contaminated or blocked, starving the engines. That could also be one of the reasons. And then there's the weather conditions. Ahmedabad, as we know, is scorching 40 degrees Celsius. In such heat, planes need more flap support and stronger thrust. Even the tiniest error in flap settings, especially with a fully loaded plane, can really be fatal. Now, the flaps are manually set by pilots, as far as we know, and go through multiple checklists, verifications. If at all they weren't set, then that could likely be a human error. But again, we're still piecing it all together. The black box, as we hear, and the cockpit video have both been recovered. Until investigators decode every single one of that second of that footage, we're not able to pin the blame on one such reason. In fact, many painful questions that still persist. 241 grieving families who are currently waiting for answers. I'm joined in tonight by Group Captain retired V.N. Jha, aviation expert and senior scientist, aerospace. We also have Captain Kishore Chinta, Chief Pilot, Sirius India Airlines Private Limited. Squadron leader retired, Deepthi Kala, aviation expert. Thanks very much. I will start with Group Captain V.N. Jha, who's an aviation expert himself, a senior scientist. Sir, your take on the way the flight dropped and dipped in barely 30 seconds after takeoff. I know every one of us have managed to go into multiple layers of reasons to why this may have happened. But your sharp observation, you're looking at the plane takeoff. It's flown by expert captains. There were two people who had miles that they had flown. Their records shown, in fact, suggests that they were one of the finest pilots. And yet something like this happened. Could you call this human error? Of course, we can't call out the investigation now, but your views on this.
Nabila, very good evening to you. And once again, I convey my condolences to the families who have lost their near and dear ones. It's an inconceivable loss for everyone, even for the nation. Now, coming back to your question, look, since yesterday we have been deliberating a lot. And often we have been deliberating on non-issue because speculation must not be indulged at this stage. And today, at least two good news have been there. One is that the black box and the CVR cockpit voice recorder has been found. So there is no room for any speculation. Everything will be absolutely crystal clear. And secondly, there is a living passenger. Yesterday, many people had asked me a question whether the accident was insurvivable. I had said in no uncertain terms, being aerospace medicine specialist, being a human factor specialist, I have conducted about 7 fatal aircraft accidents. So in no uncertain terms, I said no, aircraft was not unsurvivable. And that one single passenger who have walked out free from there just shows that the aircraft impact, whatever way it was there, however way it was there, it was survivable. If one person has survived, there is no reason why other persons should not have survived. But of course, there are plethora of variables here which would have come into play that they couldn't escape from the burning aircraft. Now, coming back to what could have been the reason for this. Look, I again reiterate that we must not speculate, especially when all these vital clues, vital evidence pieces have been recovered from the crash site. So that will go into this. But the two video clips, what you are just now, one you are just now playing onto your screen, and the second one, what is from a novice bystander who has taken just about 30 seconds or 25 seconds below the crash. These two are the pieces which tell us a lot of story, which usually keep the investigation team in the dark. There is one fact very clear here, that the aircraft, after it has started, after it has taxied, after it has gone to the shoulder of the runway, after it has lined up, after it has put the brakes and raised the RPM, and then all those vital parameters having checked and the brakes released, has gone on to the takeoff roll. And takeoff seems to be slightly further onto the runway. I believe it is just about a few hundred meters short of the threshold of the runway that it has taken off. But then the temperature was slightly on the higher side. Usually at the higher temperatures, lifts are much sluggish. That we can understand. Another thing that my eyes have caught is that the rate of ascent is slightly sluggish than I would have thought, that even at this hot temperature, with such a very powerful engines at 100%, the aircraft should have gone normally onto its ascent course. That I failed to notice here in this particular video clip. And just few seconds later, further climb has been arrested. It continues there at that, and about 4-5 seconds later, now it has started coming down. One thing you can notice, that the nose up attitude is still there. The pilot is in full control of the aircraft. There is no wing drop on the other side. It is the level flight. It is coming there as if you see from the side in the other video clip, it looks that aircraft is coming for a touchdown somewhere. Exactly the same posture, same position, usually around the same speed also. So was the pilot looking for a small stretch of the ground, whether he could have crash landed the aircraft so as to deploy all the things and open the emergency doors and everything, so that maximum passenger could have evacuated from there before the ball of fire would have caught them. So this was one question with us. These are all visibles. There is not a single shade of speculation in the things that we have told you. I have told you.
No, second thing, we are all entirely speculating at this point. There are multiple angles that are being considered and looked into, but we hear officials from Boeing are going to be landing into India. They are going to be part of this investigation. The black box has been recovered. I'm not too sure. For a common man, sir, if I could also give our panelist Kishore Chinta a chance here. Captain Kishore Chinta, how integral is the black box? As we know, the black box has been recovered. We're all waiting for a final report based on the black box recordings. In common, simple language, what does the black box hold?
So in common, simple language, the black box has two components. One is the cockpit voice recorder, which will have up to 2 hours of flight recording of all the communications, whether between both the pilots or between the pilots and the ATC, and all the other warning sounds within the cockpit. Any audible sounds will all be recorded in the cockpit voice recorder. Whereas the flight data recorder will have close to 1,000 parameters. Every single parameter, what was the heading, what was the speed, with a timestamp would be there. You can practically, there is software to reconstruct the entire flight from the startup, from the time the battery was switched on till the time the crash happened. So the entire flight can be reconstructed based on the FDR data. Everything would be there. What was the engine thrust when the aircraft rolled for takeoff? What was the acceleration? Whether it was normal, whether it was the climb rate was normal after the wheels left the ground, everything will be there in the flight data recorder. And the AAIB in India is capable of downloading the flight data recorder and the CVR data in our own lab in India, unlike before. So within no time, probably over the next 24 hours, the data would be retrieved, and they will start analyzing every bit of information which is available, which will make it amply clear to us whether the engines were producing ample thrust, whether the engines shut down, whether there was disruption of anything which caused the engines to not provide takeoff thrust for this flight as it climbed out once the wheels left the ground. So the flight data recorder is probably the single most significant part of the aircraft accident investigation.
A quick word from Squadron Leader Deepti Kala, who's an aviation expert herself. Deepti, from the looks of it, it appears as if the flight took off for good. It had a good takeoff. There was no issue while taking off. But in 30 seconds, it looked like as if there was an issue, slightly wobbly, and then it stagnated for a split second before it went down. In your expertise, what would you see as the fault here?
Yeah, Nabila. So as such, we have looked at all the angles that could have possibly gone wrong while this aircraft has gone down. However, these points are not to be missed, that it has taken a longer time to take off, approximately 100, 200 meters only before the threshold. So that's an important point. And as the videos are not very clear, and that is where we are making the assumptions as far as towards the the climb of the aircraft, that in which position were the flaps were, and a lot of speculations are going on for the landing gears also. Now, landing gears are usually taken up at 400, 500 feet. This is where around 600 feet the aircraft was already at. So there are a lot of things, there's a story getting built up, and that is why the reports are eagerly waited for, because lot of things, like simultaneously a lot of things have happened. See, if there was an emergency, then the pilot is not will not 100% focus on retracting the landing gears. So we don't know if the landing gears were stuck, or had it been some other emergency. Of course, 100% of the chances that the pilot is not bothered about the landing gears, then he has to cater to the then emergency in the cockpit. Now, if we talk about the flaps, so if the flaps are still in not in the right configuration, right, but then the engines are working or not, we are not sure. So a lot of stories can be put up here, and that is why critically analyzing the entire FDR data. FDR data is also not like, it has 1,000+ parameters, and as sir also said that we can configure the entire flight from the start till the time it came down. So analyzing everything, it takes time. So the exact factors which have led to this unfortunate incident is 100% going to take time, but then probably through the cockpit voice recorder we could at least get to know that if by any chance there is a clear-cut talk between the pilots that has happened, and that can indicate that what has exactly gone wrong, then probably we can have the
we have better understanding. But there's also a lot of talk around a bird strike, that a bird could have struck the plane. It's not unheard of, it's not unusual. We hear Ahmedabad airport in that sense is notorious for that. Lots of bird attacks that have happened there, or bird strikes that have happened there. Nothing as fatal as this one, or we still don't know if this is the reason. But what's the probability of a bird strike pushing for both engines to fail? A rarest of the rare possibility we hear, but it is a possibility.
So Nabila, I have talked about the bird hit thing with the experts also, people who probably work with Boeing also, and having worked at the airport for the 10 years, see, bird hit does not seem to be, have taken place here. Why? For two very probable reasons. One is that if both the engines are hit by the bird, okay, so there is no flock of birds I can see there in the video very clearly. As far as I'm only considering the video here, okay, and the kind of visuals I can see. Of course, the video is not with 100% high definition video, but then as far as the possibility goes. Now, second thing is that we have enough people taking care of the bird activities in and around the airport. If you see bird hits happening, it happens mostly, if you look at the data also, little at a higher altitude, not at this stage, because here people are visually also they are taking care through binoculars, and then people have their those guns also which are used to fly off the bird activities in and around. So these two reasons, and also we have not seen any flare coming from the engines if the bird hit has happened. So we've not seen that. So again, you remember the Hudson case wherein it was on an altitude. The aircraft that time was on a good altitude, and that is when the bird hit had happened. A very rare case wherein both the engines were hit, and then it was a very fortunate incident wherein the pilot landed the aircraft at the Hudson River. But then here,
It's possible.
it seems very less likely, Nabila, very less likely, like 0.001%, I would say.
Captain Jha, would you want to corroborate that?
Nabila, you can call me group captain.
Yes, sir.
Usually, that is the rank we have in the Air Force.
Sir.
I congratulate Deepthi. She has given you a beautiful description of the possibilities that can happen. Look, the bird. Has anyone seen the flock of bird at that thing? In the air traffic control, if you sit on there are the binoculars, both the threshold of the runway is continuously being monitored. In the civil air traffic control, it happens slightly less. In the military air traffic control, there are bird watchers specially positioned in the air traffic control to look for it. So was there any report? Has anyone seen a flock of bird which was at the threshold of the runway? If none has seen it, why speculate right now? Look, today, when the FDR is there, if there was a bird hit, not leave even FDR. In the engines, if there was a bird hit, the engine will cry out that story that yes, here is a bird which is in the engines. Both engines, possibility is very, very rare. At this altitude, smaller birds are there. In this engine, smaller bird will be sucked out and, pissed out of everything, and it will not be even fed by the aircraft. Such a massive engine is this. But yes, possibilities are there that it may damage any of the compression blades. That possibility is always there. So look, when we do the aircraft investigation, we keep every possible reasons for the crash onto our table, and we shift out those reasons only after we get a positive input that this was not the cause. Then only we remove from our table. Now coming first to first. Usually, we categorize all Air Force aircraft accident into three categories or so. Civil aircraft, we add one more, organizational factors. There are human factors, there are technical factors, there are the support services, and the organizational factors. Everything will be covered in this. Human factor could be the pilot factor. It could be even the engineers who would have overlooked certain aspects of the maintenance or some shortcoming in the aircraft. It could be the support services. In that, even the air traffic fuel, ATF, what is in the question right now, that even can come into the loop in that. There are many things in that. And last but not the least is the organizational factor. If any airline is running short of the aircraft, he may ask his pilot, he may pressurize his pilot that, okay, this is a small problem, you can take care of it, it doesn't cause any safety, break any safety norms. He may be pressurized there. So these are the organizational factors. Under these four categories, we look for all accidents. Now, coming back to, what we look here into it. This is the clip. It is telling you most of the story. And I must compliment the pilot who has managed to keep his composure. He knows he is going to crash. He knows that after takeoff, he has just got that few seconds in which he can continue flying the aircraft. He could have even mishandled the aircraft and stalled it there itself. He would have dropped like anything. He could have, could not have managed to keep the nose up. He could have made nose down, and then even it would have been worse, even if it was survivable onto a plain area of the Straits of the Land. So I compliment the pilot. He has tried possibly his best, but he was unfortunate that there was not a piece of flat land available before him. He crashed into the hostel of the medical college, and thereafter all stories are before you. Coming back to the entire gamut of questions that
I will come to you. There's a lot more that needs to be discussed, but before that, I really want to take our viewers through that one lone survivor, how he managed miraculously to escape. That's the man there on our screens. While 242 people on board that Air India flight died, one man survived. 40-year-old Vishwas Kumar Ramesh, a British national from Leicester. He was visiting India, meeting his family members. He boarded the London-bound Dreamliner with his brother. They were seated just across the aisle from each other. His brother sadly didn't make it, but Vishwas did. Moments after takeoff, Vishwas says the plane felt like it was stuck mid-air. This is his account. The cabin lights, he says, began flickering soon after takeoff. Green and white light that began to flicker within the aircraft, and then in moments came the crash. Now, he was seated in seat 11A, which was the first row of the economy class, basically right behind business class, near the emergency exit on the left. When the plane went down, the front left section where he sat slammed into the canteen building of BJ Medical College. In fact, as we hear from him, he explains how he really escaped. What worked in his favor was the fact that he was seated in an area which did not touch the wall of that medical college. Unlike the mid and rear sections that caught fire and disintegrated, the front section broke off and landed low, partially intact. If I can take you through that image of that flight crashing into the building there, you see the nose of that plane that's crashed straight into the wall, while he was right behind that area that had crashed into that building. Therefore, he survived. Vishwas says that he managed to unbuckle his seat belt, kicked open a small opening in the fuselage and literally crawled out. If you can show those images of the plane that's stuck on the wall of that building there, to take you through a quick understanding of what that really looks like. Let me take you through exactly what Vishwas has said. He says, and I quote, "I ran there were bodies around me. I saw so many of them dead around me. I saw them, I got up, I ran. Someone in fact pulled me into an ambulance." That's what he said. Now, footage later showed the same man walking out, bloodied, dazed, towards help, wanting to get some help at that point. And right behind him was a thick smoke that was billowing. So we know for certain that the man escaped that burning plane and walked out almost unscathed. For the injuries that he had, barely any. Fortunate for him, he is now recovering at the Ahmedabad Civil Hospital, bed number 11, Ward B7. He's under constant monitoring, guarded by the Gujarat ATS and the city crime branch. Doctors say, in fact, right now he's out of danger, but he's under immense trauma, which I'm sure he'll carry for a lifetime here. Investigators do believe that his survival may have been sheer chance. His position near the emergency exit, the way the fuselage broke, seconds before fire engulfed the wreckage, the way he managed to come out of that fire, all of this is an absolute miracle. He lived, but he's certainly haunted. He in fact says that he saw air hostess die right in front of him and few other people. An uncle, he says, who was really trying to help himself but couldn't. He says he saw his brother's seat but could not find his brother. It was empty. He walked out of that fire and rubble all alone, has managed to survive to tell his tale. All right. Group Captain Jha, your take on that. I'll come to you on how do you believe that this man really survived. It's sheer miracle. A lot of speculation whether he was seated right next to the emergency exit that really helped him with a passage. But the plane blew up. It caught fire instantly. I still am amazed to believe that he managed to walk out of that fire.
Well, Nabila, once again, I remind you, I will be reluctant to speculate, but since this is my specialty, I know what is survival crash, what is not a survival crash, and what are the factors in survivability. All those things we calculate when we start working towards it on the table of the investigation. One thing I slightly disagree with you, that the front portion of the cockpit that possibly escaped the bellows, I slightly disagree, because had that been so, at least one person from that front section would have walked out. Maybe it could have been a passenger, maybe it could have been one of the pilots or cabin crew. No, that didn't happen.
What I hear from his account, as per what he says, the man claims that when I woke up, he says when I woke up, I saw on my right there was a wall, and on my left I saw a small window, and I tried to escape from that window, the fuselage.
Absolutely, no question on that. I was only telling you that had the front section, that the executive class, would have escaped, then at least there would have been some survivor from the executive class. That was not the case. This person was in the general class. That 11A seat is the one which is just behind the the in front of the door. So that door blew off, or if that was the exit, emergency exit, that blew off, or that was removed. Here is one clause, again, I would be slightly circumspect. Whether it has given way, flown off because of the impact, or did crew try to, there are the situations in which crew, just before landing or maybe immediately on the landing, do try to take out the blow off the emergency doors before landing or immediately after the landing. Those chutes and other things that do get deployed after that. I'm not sure whether the pilot had tried anything onto this. Only cockpit data recorded, that black box will tell us that particular story. I'll be slightly reluctant to accept anything here. What that individual says, that it was blown off with the impact and then he came out of it. There could be more than what he is saying. He is a passenger. I cannot expect him to give the aviator's view or the inspector's view what he speaks. He is telling you what he felt. So that's fine. That is what he has said. But I, as an investigator, as a specialist, I will be more keen to look at the additional features into that. What was the impact? How much was the impact? What was the...
Chinta also on this. Sir, if I could bring in Captain Chinta on this. As per you, Vishwas's account, how would you look at his miraculous escape? Do you believe that the aircraft's design and seat location was really the reason for his survival, or was it all angles that that contributed to him coming out safe?
There are far too many variables on the angle of impact to what exactly transpired and how he got flung away from the main fireball which ensued the immediate aftermath of the crash. Because seat 11A is barely 3 rows ahead of the wings. On the 787 is basically just 3 rows. The first row, it's actually the first row of the economy class behind the business class. So there is a bulkhead over there which separates the business class and the economy. Which part gave away on impact, which covered him to shield him from the fireball, which was an immediate aftermath after the impact on ground, we really cannot speculate. What he's saying can only be attributed to the startle effect post-crash and the trauma due to the crash. So we can discount whatever account he gives as purely a victim's account. From aviation perspective, miracles do happen. There have been crashes where aircraft have gone into mountainsides, and still we've had survivors, more than 4 or 5, where a Japan Air aircraft went into a hill. So this is a low speed impact where technically the maximum injuries would not be blunt injuries. They're mostly burn injuries, which will come out during the postmortems. But my view is that it is nothing short of a miracle that he managed to...
So you're saying this is just miracle. The fact that he was seated by the exit door, none of that really played a role. And now you might just see bookings hectically. So. Prices for seat 11A might just shoot up.
In fact, like I said, it's just ahead of the wing. If anything, with close to 60,000 pounds of fuel in those wings, that would probably be the impact point where the maximum impact of the fireball would have actually happened. You're so close to the wing.
Ms. Deepti, Captain Deepti, your take on the man who actually managed to step out of that burning plane. We are not too sure if he actually exited before the plane went up in flames, or whether it was while during the blaze he managed to step out. That particular point is yet to be established. But he says that the front part of the plane was already in fire. So I'm assuming that the fire caught on, and then while it was raging, he managed to escape.
Namila, I would not repeat what both the seniors have already said. They are absolutely on point when it comes to Sir telling that, it's not always 100% that the chances of survival are not there. So with his experience, it is almost in every aircraft accident, we assume that somebody might survive. Now, I would like to back it up. The statement of miracle with an incident that had happened with an Air Force jet in the HAL, it had happened, and unfortunately, one of the pilot was my known, and the fighter jet had ejection seats. Yet they ejected, and still they fell inside the fire of the aircraft itself. Now imagine an aircraft wherein you have the chances of highest survival because of the ejection seat, and yet both the pilots could not be saved or could not get saved, right? So this is where we call it the fate of destiny or the decision of the destiny. And this is what we clearly see in this case, because what Chinta sir said was exactly what my point was, that the position that he was in, it's not that it's the most safest, because there is all the fuel is there. So it is the most impacted one when it comes to the ball of fire that has happened. So how come he has survived? Of course, I'm thankful to God that somebody has survived, and probably it was his chance to survive. However, all these speculations around how it happened, he would not know it. It was sheer luck. For him, of course, it's a very traumatic situation. But as an expert, if we talk about the plane has got into fire the moment it has landed, so there is no chance that the fire has not happened till the time he probably would have gotten up, and we don't know at what particular time he would have gotten up. But when I apply my logic, it doesn't allow me to believe that the fire has not happened and he came out of it. Now the question comes that if 11A became so safe, then what about the seat beside him? Probably that person at least should have had major injuries but would have survived. We don't know. These are the kind of little questions that come to me as a person who has seen aircraft with that kind of closeness. So it's a sheer miracle, and we are fortunate that at least we can't say that it's a all fatal incident that has happened. So let's wait for the reports to come, and we are all eager to know that what has exactly gone wrong with such kind of advanced aircraft, with such kind of trained pilots, and a long haul distance flight wherein all the checks and balances are already done, specifically when the aircraft has already flown from Delhi to Ahmedabad. Certain issues have already come on the social media wherein people are talking about the AC not working, this infotainment systems were not working. About infotainment system, I never got a chance, and in fact nobody asked that question, but I would like to tell the viewers, whosoever is watching, that infotainment system usually works when the aircraft has flown off. Initially when it is at the halt, it is usually stuck.
And what about ACs? When AC is not working while you're in flight?
ACs 100% do work.
So was that cost cutting by Air India?
Sorry?
Was that cost cutting by Air India?
No, I don't think so. So I see, I'm not a Air India employee or...
No, I'm asking you. I mean, in your expertise, why do airlines do that?
I won't, being a gentle lady or an officer from the military, I don't see that with such kind of... some minutes of AC, any airline would do that kind of thing to the...
So you're saying that AC, infotainment, those TV screens, remotes has nothing to do with the engine if there was a failure?
Yes, that's what my
Not connected whatsoever, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to have you to stay with us for the moment. I want to take our viewers through the families right now who are currently in immense pain and grief. Families are in pain. They're struggling for answers at this point. At Ahmedabad Civil Hospital, the corridors were filled with silence that were broken only by cries of grief. The fire was so intense on that plane. Most bodies we hear are currently unrecognizable. Out of the 240 bodies recovered, only one has been identified so far. Doctors have collected over 205 DNA samples, but the reports could take up to 72 hours. In fact, one woman was heard crying. She says, "How do I believe he's gone unless I see him?" Another, we hear, family member who asked, what if they mix up the bodies? For families, this wait is unbearable. Many of them have flown in from UK, Canada, Portugal, desperate for answers to find their loved ones' mortal remains. They are just said goodbye at the airport and now they're giving DNA tests to identify their loved ones. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has said that the official death count will only be declared after DNA confirmation. Inside the hospital, we hear about 190 relatives have already submitted their DNA samples. Each match takes time. Each minute, of course, for the families now feeling endless. They were fathers who were flying out to reunite with their sons, newlyweds who were heading for their honeymoon, a retired teacher who finally took that dream vacation. Every story now frozen in time. Many families had just about said goodbye to their loved ones. And just when they were on their way back, after dropping off their loved ones at the airport, they got phone calls saying the plane had crashed. Well, this is highly tragic. The visuals that you're seeing on our screens here are of those people who died in that plane crash. 241 of them, a big number. We hear this is the biggest tragedy that India has seen in decades. In fact, 3 officials from the National Disaster Response Force have confirmed the flight data recorder has been found, the black box has been recovered. So at least some kind of answers the family could get now of how and why their loved ones died. How did the plane crash? That could give hopefully some kind of closure to them. You know, in this black box we hear could hold very crucial answers of the final moments of the flight. For now, families have no answers at all. In fact, they're not even being told whether their loved ones have survived or not. Just one answer, you'll have to wait for DNA tests. In fact, the questions are so many, the family members do not know who to ask because none of the officials are giving them responses, and fairly so because you just don't know. Most of the bodies we hear are fully charred, unrecognizable. DNA tests are going to take time. What we saw was a reunion of family members, eventually a farewell, then coming down to a crash, ripping apart families, halting all their dreams, leaving this nation currently in mourning. I'm going to take you through some of the accounts of family members who are desperately waiting to get something of their loved ones.
मैं यहाँ बीजे मेडिकल की जो यूजी में से वहाँ पे मैं, मेरी मम्मी, मेरी वाइफ सब लोग यहाँ काम करते हैं। यहाँ से हम बीजे मेडिकल के यूजी स्टूडेंट हैं, वो यहाँ खाना खाने आते हैं और हम जो है सीनियर डॉक्टर रेसिडेंट का टिफिन यहाँ से भर के सिविल में ले जाते हैं। हम 1 बजे यहाँ से टिफिन भर के सिविल में गए और 1:30 बजे के बाद ये हादसा हुआ है। उसमें मम्मी और मेरी लड़की 2 साल की, वो दोनों यहाँ अंदर ही रह गए। बाकी सब जो खाना बनाने वाली मासी ऊपर नीचे करीबन 20-25 मासियाँ होगी, वो सब निकल गए हैं। वो बाकी सबों का कॉल आ चुका है। खाली मेरी मम्मी और मेरी 2 साल की लड़की नहीं मिले हैं अभी तक। कल पूरा दिन सिविल में ढूंढते रहे, सब जगह देख लिया, वार्ड में कहीं भी नहीं है।
एयर इंडिया हो या जो भी एयरलाइन से कोई आदमी हमारे घर पे कोई एक आदमी भी नहीं आया और रिपोर्ट भी नहीं किया है। वो तो मेरा एक बेटा दिल्ली में है, सर वो काम पे जरूरत हो जाएंगे डीएनए, तब तो इनके दीदी तो बुला के उसके साथ जाने के लिए अभी दिल्ली पहुंचने के बाद फिर अहमदाबाद जाना है। तो जो भी हो सरकार के तरफ से या मीडिया के तरफ से भी हो, घर में कोई आकर पूछा नहीं, कोई आकर कोई जानकारी लिया नहीं, उस भी तरीका उसका नहीं है और एक शब्द भी हमारे घर पे सुना ही नहीं।
कितने डॉक्टरों का इतना कुछ किया है आज हमारे लिए, इतना करूँ कि बस मेरे भतीजे और मेरे मम्मी को मिला दो।
मैं मेस में काम करती हूँ, बहुत सारा पड़ाका हुआ, हम सब दौड़ के नीचे भागे, बस अपनी अपनी जान बचा के भागे, कुछ पता ही नहीं चला।
कितने लोग लंदन के लिए उड़ रहे थे, कितने बच्चे थे उसमें, जब ये कैसे हादसा हुआ, इसकी पूरी जांच होनी चाहिए। एयर इंडिया को इसका जवाब देना चाहिए, उसके इंजीनियर को जवाब देना चाहिए, उसके जितने भी कर्मचारी है ये फ्लाइट को उड़ने कैसा दिए।
वो प्लेन क्या इधर से आया तो वो मालूम हुआ कि हमको ऐसा कि लाइट आई तो लाइट बम फैलाते हुआ ऐसा, और फिर से हुआ न, जब बोला तो ये तो प्लेन पड़ा तो हम तो जल्दी जल्दी भाग के आए।
जब हम रोटी बना रहे न तब वो ऊपर से प्लेन ऐसा गिर गया नीचे और बहुत हादसा हुआ था, बहुत यानी बहुत। सिलेंडर हमने लगा कि सिलेंडर फटा है तो पीछे से आगे ऐसी भभूक गई ना, तो मेरे पीछे यहाँ थोड़ा जल गई हूँ, तो मगर अपनी जान बचाने के लिए हम है न कुछ भी लिया नहीं, सब ऊपर छोड़ के नीचे उतर गए हम।
All right, well, the family members now are really hoping for the DNA test to come about as soon as possible, but very tragic stories that are coming to light, many of these stories that are just about unfolding. Let me bring in Group Captain Jha. Sir, what if a family member is adopted or does not have a family, then how do you ascertain with DNA test here?
Well, Nabila, DNA test is the most authentic and reliable in the present times of the medical science. And I slightly disagree with you in your opening remark when you had said that no one knows whose body they are taking. No, there is no question. If there is a near and dear, if it is on his blood relation, there will be absolutely no doubt that the body that they will be taking is their own near and dear. Secondly,
members' apprehension only, it's not mine.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Another thing that, within the given situation, this Ahmedabad part of the area where all this has happened. Now, that's a medical college which has taken most of the loads. And Ahmedabad has got many of the labs which is equipped with the DNA testing. So it will be done there. It all will be handled there. And very fact that the reports are coming within 24 hours is of that massive scale of the sampling is by itself, it is a achievement. So let's give this feeling to all passengers or their families that we are dealing with a very large situation and the administration is doing almost its best that can be done today. That having said, look, the DNA is the only hope. Now people said that they have not received telephone call. Me and you, when we book our ticket, which telephone number we give to the airliner at the time of booking is the one which is the contact. Now, if that passenger happens to be giving his own number, then there will be no one receiving a call on that number. The family may not know. The other people who are there, they may not know whom they are calling. So all these are the possibilities that can happen. People have got the near and dear have got the reasons to be, aggrieved. Only those people will know the type of pain who have lost their near and dear. That is the type of pain that you feel. But here there is an administration, there is a very big crowd, and there is a situation which is absolutely new. Yesterday it has happened. And today we are saying that 6 bodies were already handed over to the relatives who could match with that. So things have started moving. All this takes very long time. I know in one of the aircraft accident, what happened long back, it was almost about 24 days, 25 days when the samplings report had not come. So all those things happened. So we are dealing with a situation here fairly reasonably at quick pace. It is taking place. So let's give that confidence to all near and dear. And if we can help, of course, I'm far away from Ahmedabad, but those who are in the Ahmedabad, if they can help out the situation, there's a need for additional hands. even though administration has given the telephone contact number, people are contacting. If there
have been a lot of civil groups I hear who have extended a helping hand. Captain Chinta, in your view, identifying the bodies at this point has become a task. Families have been asked to wait a few days until DNA tests are out. The most excruciating period for the family to know that they right now are unable to identify their loved ones. They've got to wait for DNA tests to match. The worst possible experience for a family.
Absolutely, it's a horrifying time for the near and dear to wait to be identified. Their departed close family members, but the only way, like Group Captain Jha said, is to wait for the DNA results, which is probably the only conclusive way to identify each and every body. There are ways and means to contact the family for those who have not come forward yet. In all probability, there would be the DNA sample, which is still pending, would be foreign nationals whose families will have to come to India and then give their DNA sample. So those are probably the delays. But as news has come in, almost all the Indian passengers have given their DNA samples for identification of the bodies. It will take due course of time. It's a process which needs to go through, no matter how long it takes. Might take 24 hours, might take 48 hours, but it is the only way forward. My heart goes out for each and every member of family who has to sit and wait. It's probably the most horrifying moments for each of them. And while we say this, I would like to place it on record. We need to salute each and every aviation personnel on that particular day after the crash who's gone back into the air, especially those who took off from Ahmedabad and landed in Ahmedabad on that day. We need to salute them. In the Air Force, whenever there was a crash, the very next day, the entire squadron would go up in the air as a vote of confidence on that machine and the process and the engineers and the whole system. Here, they did not have that luxury. They lost their colleagues. They lost their, people who worked with them probably, flew with them in the same aircraft. But those crew who flew on that day and still fly, it's a salute to the aviation industry and all the people, whether on ground personnel, airport staff, everyone. This is absolute resilience, and the resolve of each and every one of them has to be saluted by us.
Chinta, thank you very much. I also thank Squadron Deepthi for joining us and Group Captain Jha. Really appreciate you taking your time out and giving us this very deep insight into what could have happened. Now, as I progress, a quick look at Boeing and Air India that currently is under fire. Could this tragedy have been prevented? The Air India crash has certainly sent shockwaves across the world. The Dreamliner going down within seconds of taking off, killing 241. Of course, the spotlight now is firmly on Boeing and on Air India. The DGCA has now stepped in with emergency safety checks on all Boeing 787's operations from India going forward. From June 15th, all Indian origin flights must undergo special one-time pre-departure checks. This includes inspections of the fuel system, of engine control, hydraulics, cabin air and takeoff parameters. The new flight control inspection is being added to every transit check. Airlines have 2 weeks now to conduct power tests and must submit a detailed report to the DGCA. The urgency, of course, is because this isn't the first time Boeing's Dreamliner has faced trouble. This year alone, 5 incidents have been reportedly come to light. In fact, globally, there has been instances of engine failures, altitude drops, gear snags and cabin pressure loss. Air India has had a rough history with this very aircraft 787 dating back to a decade. In fact, in 2013, Japan Airlines grounded its 787s after 2 cases of fuel leaks. United Airlines reportedly had a malfunction, a battery malfunction that led to temporary grounding of 787s. India's own Ministry of Civil Aviation has admitted that within 14 months of 787's launch with Air India, the Dreamliner fleet saw 136 glitches, and it cost the airline crores of rupees as the flights had to be grounded. The airline had to find different ways to maneuver. Money was lost during that period. Even last year, December 2024, a Delhi-Birmingham flight suffered a hydraulic leak during landing. Now, the plane had to be towed off here at that point, off the runway, and that also was grounded for over a day. Between 2015 and now, Air India's Boeing 787s have seen 32 instances, from engine shutdowns, gear malfunctions, to smoke in cabins and windshield cracks. None of them fatal, of course, until this very crash. And now questions at this point being asked, was this aircraft properly maintained? Were earlier complaints ignored? Why was it cleared to fly if there were any complaints or issues in the first place? In January this year, a whistleblower at Boeing, Sam Salehpour, told the FAA that shortcuts were being taken while assembling the 787s, directly blaming the Boeing management of trying to cost cut. He alleges that engineers were pressured to approve uninspected work and parts of the fuselage weren't joined properly, potentially shortening the plane's lifespan. The investigation particularly is still ongoing. And now with Air India, CEO Campbell Wilson has expressed deep sorrow and regret. The airline has announced 1 crore in compensation for each family member. But of course, family there not wanting compensation want their loved ones back. In fact, Air India also in this mess very well could likely face legal action. Families, especially of foreign nationals, may file class action suits. What about the pilots? Well, some experts say that we should wait before pointing fingers, but we do know, history reminds us, 1989 British Midlands crash, where experienced pilots shut down the wrong engine after a fault. They had no simulator training for that aircraft variant, of course, which is why that human error happened there. But at that point, it came to light that the airline had not carried out training, proper training to ensure their pilots were equipped with that skill. Well, could this be another case of poor oversight then? Did Air India carry out sufficient training of their pilots? The only thing that's certain now is this tragedy did not come from anywhere. It could have certainly been avoided had there been proper checks. Now, what happened? That we've got to wait and watch.
This morning, I visited the crash site and was deeply moved by the scenes. I also met key stakeholders in the government and assured them that Air India is committed to full cooperation with those working on the ground and to the investigations. We know that the investigations will take time, but we will be fully transparent and will support the process for as long as it takes.
All right, on that note, I'm wrapping up right here. Our condolences going out to the families of deceased. We're really tracking the story very closely. All updates right here on News 9. Thanks very much for watching.
This is the drive of your dreams. Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
Skoda.
सर, पेन रिलीफ के लिए
ये देखो, ये काफी है।
2 हफ्ते का टूर है, कहीं कम ना पड़ जाए।
दुबे जी, ये छोटा सा डायनाबार QPS प्लस आपके 2 स्प्रे के बराबर है।
पेश है डायनाबार QPS प्लस।
लगा के देखो, मान जाओगे।
डायनाबार QPS प्लस।
Let there be dark. Scorpio and Carbon is here. The big daddy of SUVs.